Each of us has the power and the ability to shape our own life. We also have an influence on the lives of everyone around us. Psychologists have named this influence the Pygmalion Effect. Now, Pygmalion, according to Greek mythology, was a sculptor who sculpted the statue of a lady with such beauty and grace that he fell in love with the statue. And it wasn't like, I love this beautiful work of art, but like love, and he wanted to marry it. Now, supposedly, having sculpted the statue with such beauty and grace, the goddess of love came along and decided that she would transform this statue, made out of stone, into a real lady for him. So she shot this arrow into the heart of the statue, and of course the statue turned into a live lady, and she and Pygmalion lived happily ever after, or at least so the story goes. So what we are talking about here is the Pygmalion effect in psychology, or in managing any kind of a person. The Pygmalion concept is just this, that you and I, as a strong person, for instance like a team leader, a star recruiter, or a director, we hold a picture for another person, perhaps someone we have recruited, perhaps someone in our unit. And we hold that picture the way we think they are. Then we consciously or unconsciously treat them like the picture that we hold for them. Then they get the opinion, well, this must be the way I am, and then they act out the picture or belief about themselves that they now have in their mind. There was a study done by a person named Rosenthal. Now, Rosenthal was a psychologist down in California who went into this preschool and gave this test to these little children to find out which ones were spurters. Now, a spurter is a child who has potential that wasn't being used. So he went in and gave the test with the teachers okay, but the teacher and, of course, the students were the only ones who were not in on the game. He didn't have any intent of finding out which ones were really spurters. They were trying to fool the teacher. So they went in, proposed and gave the test, went out and didn't correct the test, but came back and then just at random selected the kids and gave the so-called test scores to the teacher. And then Rosenthal would say something like this, well, Doris should be at the head of the class, but she is just lazy. And Al could be at the top of his class, but nobody ever bothered to read to him, and so on. Now, every child that Rosenthal selected as supposedly being a spurter, and then having told the teacher that these were to be spurters, every one of these children so identified rose to the head of the class and stayed there. The teacher didn't know any better. The teacher thought they were smart. So the teacher then, having this picture in her mind, thought that these kids had it, and so would teach these spurter children in a manner consistent with her appraisal of them. Now, the children didn't know any better. They had never been to school before, and they thought they were smart. So sure enough, these kids rose to the top of the class and stayed there, because the teacher, in this case, became the Pygmalion, the sculptor, if you will, for these children. By the way, Rosenthal was sued for the study. Guess by whom? Who do you think? No, not by the teacher. Rosenthal was sued by the parents of the children that were not identified as spurters. Guess how the teacher treated them? Like they didn't have it. Like they didn't have it, see? Now, Rosenthal did another study at a welding school in San Francisco. Kids that ranged in age from 17 to 20. Now, he gave them the same type of test, went out and supposedly corrected it but didn't, and then came back and at random identified certain kids as spurters. Now, the kids that were identified as spurters rose to the top of the class. And those that were not identified hung around those that were identified and treated them like they had it. The kids identified as spurters didn't know any better because an authority figure had proven that they had it by this test. So they formed the opinion that they were smart, and again, everyone identified as spurters rose to the top of the class and stayed there. They made a movie of the Pygmalion concept, and it was called My Fair Lady, if you'll recall. And in this movie, there was this man by the name of Professor Higgins, who thought he was so good that he made a bet with a friend of his that he could take the lowliest flower girl off the streets of London, and by putting her through his training program, could transform this waif of a nothing into something. He bet that he could have her go to the grandest ball and pass her off as royalty. So he put this girl by the name of Eliza Doolittle through his training program, and sure enough, he got Eliza Doolittle to behave like royalty. And he took her to the big ball, and he won his bet. So in this sense, what we are saying is that Professor Higgins was the Pygmalion. He had a picture in his mind of the way this person could be, and then would work with this person based upon his picture, would transform this other person to behave like the model that he had. Now, Eliza Doolittle had a very powerful line that is appropriate for every one of us who lead other people. Eliza was sitting around and saying, "I will always be a flower girl to Professor Higgins, because he always sees me and treats me like a flower girl. But I will always be a lady to you, because you always see me and treat me like a lady." So what I am saying is that if you want to have a dynamic, successful, and energetic recruit, then in your mind you must see them as dynamic, successful, and energetic, because then you will treat them in accordance with your picture of them. Then they will respond by acting in accordance with the way they are treated, and you will thus think that you are a very great prophet. But if you see this person as a drag on your career, or as an anchor on the end you sit down on, then guess how you will treat her? Just about like your picture. Oh, they may not believe it at first, but if you persist, they get the idea. So you must be very careful of the picture that you hold for another. You may be the cause of the end result. And by the way, Professor Higgins in this case never let go of the entry level. He held the picture of what she was and never allowed for the growth. Never allowed his picture to change of the way she was when she first came off the streets of London. See, we often do that, and remembering the mistakes that one another have made and keep recalling their shortcomings and failures. The picture you hold towards your recruits, team leaders, star consultants, or hostesses will cause you to act toward these people the way that you see them. And you don't do this so much consciously as unconsciously, subconsciously. In the Reader's Digest of November 1986, the current one, there is a story in there called Beethoven's Kiss. And I want to read it to you because it talks about the very thing we're talking about. It is written by Ander Foldes, who is age 72, a renowned concert pianist living in Switzerland, but performs all over the world. He was saying, as I was giving a master class for young pianists in Saarbrücken, West Germany, in September 1985, I felt that one student would do even better if I gave him a pat on the back. I praised him before the whole class for what distinguished his playing. He immediately outdid himself, to his amazement and that of the group. A few words brought out the best in him. At 16, I was in the midst of a personal crisis arising from differences with my music teacher. Then the renowned pianist Emil von Sauer, Franz Liszt's last surviving pupil, came to Budapest and asked me to play for him. He listened intently to Bach's Toccata in C major and requested more. I put all my heart into playing Beethoven's Pathetic Sonata and continued with Schumann's Papillons. Finally, von Sauer rose and kissed me on the forehead. My son, he said, when I was your age, I became a student of Liszt. He kissed me on the forehead after my first lesson, saying, take good care of this kiss. It comes from Beethoven, who gave it to me after hearing me play. I have waited for years to pass on this sacred heritage, but now I feel you deserve it. Nothing in my life has meant as much to me as von Sauer's praise. Beethoven's kiss miraculously lifted me out of my crisis and helped me become the pianist I am today. Soon I, in turn, will pass it on to the one who most deserves it. Praise is a potent force, a candle in a dark room. It is magic, and I marvel that it always works. How do we help others grow? How can I help my hostess, my recruit, my consultant, team leader, star consultant, director, or myself grow in this business? We do so this way. First, recognize that all of these people, including myself, have infinite potential infinite potential for growth and change. Secondly, now form a picture in your mind of this person with infinite potential, easily doing those things necessary for success. Third, with the successful picture in your mind, treat them in accordance with the picture that you now hold of them. And 4, as you treat them in this manner, they will form the opinion, that's the way I am. And 5, as they form that opinion of themselves, they will now form a picture of themselves doing this work or task with ease and success. And finally, they will act in accordance with the truth as they believe it to be, in accordance with the picture that they now hold. And they will find themselves doing tasks successfully in an effortless, free-flowing, successful manner. Let's review the steps. First, recognize. 2, form a picture in my mind. 3, treat the person in accordance with the picture I hold for them. 4, the other person now forms the opinion. 5, the other person now forms the picture in their mind. And 6, they will now act in accordance with the picture in their mind. Each of you have a marvelous opportunity to help others grow and change. Each of you has a marvelous opportunity to help yourself learn, grow, and change. Each of you has a marvelous opportunity for your own Mary Kay business to flourish through helping others grow. To each of you I say Godspeed. I behold you as you truly are, infinite potential for success. Go now and be that which you already are. Thank you, and God bless you all.